Kash Patel and Susie Wiles, two of the most powerful figures in the new Trump administration, but years before they assumed office, they were the targets of a massive secret data collection operation by the FBI.
New details emerging about the FBI's collection of phone records. During the Biden administration, the FBI seized phone records of two people who are now top Trump administration officials. NTD's Melina Wisecup joins us live for more. Good morning, Melina. There's been scrutiny from Republicans in recent weeks about the FBI's past seizures of elected officials' phone records. What's the latest?
So, Steph, now we're learning that the FBI's reach was further than just those lawmakers. FBI Director Kash Patel and Trump's current chief of staff, Susie Wiles, were also targets of the FBI when the DOJ was investigating Trump in several cases, including the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case and the case related to the 2020 election. The Bureau under Biden's presidency obtained phone records from these two, Patel and Wiles. They're now two current Trump administration officials. But at the time that these phone records were seized, they were private citizens, Steph. Both Patel and Wiles have also long been close allies of the president, even before the start of this administration, and notably held close ties with Trump leading up to and during his 2024 campaign. Now, at the time that these phone records were seized, it happened around the time that the DOJ was conducting the investigation into the Mar-a-Lago. Patel said investigators used subpoenas to obtain something known as toll records, which shows the timing and people involved on their calls, but not the content of the conversations. But still, Patel called the move outrageous and deeply alarming that the previous FBI leadership secretly subpoenaed their records. Now, of course, Steph, the big concern here is how hidden this process was. Patel said that the process and the related files were buried in something called prohibited case files designed to evade all oversight. Now, former Special Counsel Jack Smith, when he testified to Congress recently, was under fire from Republicans for the seizure of lawmakers' records. But Smith asserted that he followed the laws and DOJ procedures for conducting that investigation at the time, Steph.
Has current FBI leader Kash Patel taken any action since learning of these developments?
Yeah, so just yesterday after this news broke, according to media reports, Patel fired at least 10 FBI employees after it was discovered that himself and Wiles were targeted in the FBI's phone seizures. The FBI Agents Association criticized those firings, saying that it violates due process of those who were fired. Also, Patel took another step here. He recently ended the FBI's ability to categorize files as prohibited to try to prevent something like this from being hidden in the future. Stuff.
Kash Patel revealing Thursday that the Bureau, while under President Biden's administration, subpoenaed both his phone records and those of the White House Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, both of whom were private citizens at the time.
Patel says investigators obtained records that detailed timing and recipients of calls made between 2020 and 2023 as part of the federal investigation into whether President Trump improperly stored classified documents at his home in Mar-a-Lago. In response to Patel's revelations, Wiles reportedly told associates that she was, quote, in shock. Patel himself offered harsh criticism of the subpoenas, saying in a statement to Axios, quote, "It is outrageous and deeply alarming that previous FBI leadership secretly subpoenaed my own phone records, along with those of now White House Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, using flimsy pretexts and burying the entire process in prohibited case files designed to evade all oversight." The news comes as Patel continues to purge the Bureau of agents who worked on investigations into President Trump. Yesterday, the Bureau fired around 10 additional agents who had worked on that classified documents case.
Now, despite Patel and Wiles' outrage, the New York Times reports
new details are surfacing regarding the FBI's extensive collection of phone records during the Biden administration. The Bureau seized the communication logs of two individuals who are now top officials in the Trump administration. The FBI's reach extended far beyond elected lawmakers. Current FBI Director Kash Patel and White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles were directly targeted by the Department of Justice. This operation occurred while the DOJ was investigating President Donald Trump across multiple fronts. These investigations included the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case, as well as inquiries related to the 2020 election. Under President Biden, the Bureau secured the phone records of Patel and Wiles. While they hold immense power today, at the time of the seizures, both were private citizens. They have long stood as close, loyal allies to the president, maintaining deep ties with Trump before and during his 2024 campaign. The seizure of their records perfectly aligned with the timeline of the DOJ's active investigation into the Mar-a-Lago classified documents. Donald Trump's greatest vulnerability does not stem from his visible adversaries. It stems from the very individuals he trusted the most. The federal justice system reached these allies first, utilizing secret subpoenas, restrictive gag orders, and confidential grand jury proceedings. Consequently, phone logs, text messages, bank records, and sworn testimonies now reside permanently within federal case files. No single individual possesses the power to control or erase these records. This is the Kash Patel nightmare. It remains one of the most explosive and underreported stories of our time. Let us break down exactly why this situation carries such unprecedented gravity. Kash Patel was positioned to be the ultimate Trump loyalist, the administration's primary attack dog. Yet, as FBI Director Patel recently confirmed that investigators had utilized subpoenas to acquire toll records. These records reveal the specific timing and the identities of the people involved in his calls, though they do not capture the audio content of the conversations. Despite this limitation, Patel condemned the action as outrageous and deeply alarming, criticizing previous FBI leadership for secretly subpoenaing his data. A major point of concern is the profound secrecy surrounding this operation. Patel disclosed that the process and the corresponding files were intentionally buried in what are known as prohibited case files. This classification was specifically designed to bypass standard oversight mechanisms. Former Special Counsel Jack Smith recently faced fierce criticism from Republicans in Congress regarding the seizure of lawmakers' records. However, Smith firmly asserted that his actions strictly adhered to established laws and DOJ protocols for conducting such investigations. Following these revelations, Kash Patel took immediate, decisive action. Shortly after the news broke, media reports confirmed that Patel fired at least 10 FBI employees. This purge occurred immediately after he discovered that he and Wiles were targets of the FBI's data collection. The FBI Agents Association sharply criticized the dismissals, arguing that the firings violated the due process rights of the employees involved. Furthermore, Patel completely eliminated the FBI's ability to categorize files as prohibited. This structural change aims to prevent similar investigative materials from being concealed in the future. Consider the profound irony of this situation. Patel was the operative who attacked the deep state more aggressively than anyone else in Trump's inner circle. He publicly dismantled the credibility of the FBI, the Justice Department, and the intelligence community, the very institutions Trump accused of orchestrating witch hunts. In return for this unwavering loyalty, Trump rewarded Patel with the ultimate prize. He appointed him as the director of the FBI. The man who spent years denouncing the deep state was suddenly handed the keys to its most powerful engine. But while Patel was publicly warring with the system, demanding investigations into the investigators, that same system was quietly executing an extraordinary operation against him. Patel officially revealed that the Bureau, operating under the Biden administration, subpoenaed his phone records and those of Susie Wiles. Both were private citizens at the time of the data collection. Investigators successfully obtained detailed logs of call timings and recipients spanning from 2020 through 2023. This aggressive collection was a core component of the federal investigation into whether President Trump had unlawfully stored classified documents at his Mar-a-Lago residence. Susie Wiles reportedly told associates she was in absolute shock over the revelation. Patel issued a scathing statement to Axios. He described the secret subpoenas as an outrageous use of flimsy pretext by previous FBI leadership, deliberately hidden in prohibited case files to evade accountability. The fallout continues as Patel aggressively purges the Bureau of agents involved in the Trump investigations. Around 10 additional agents linked to the classified documents case were recently terminated. Yet, despite the outrage from Patel and Wiles, reports from the New York Times indicate that federal investigators were meticulously constructing one of the most comprehensive investigative files ever assembled on a Trump insider. They were not building a case against the political enemy. They were documenting Kash Patel. Those extensive files remain completely intact. They sit securely inside the Department of Justice, entirely beyond Trump's control, waiting. It is crucial to define the concept of betrayal in this context carefully. Kash Patel did not suddenly decide to turn against Donald Trump. He did not strike a backroom deal with prosecutors, nor did he alter his political allegiances to save himself. The reality is far more legally precise and significantly more dangerous for Trump than a simple act of treason. It has been public knowledge for years that Patel was under intense scrutiny by Jack Smith's investigators. He was legally compelled to testify before a grand jury. The collection of Susie Wiles' records was previously disclosed during the inquiry into the mishandling of classified documents. Patel became a primary target of investigators after he actively came to Trump's defense following the FBI's search of Mar-a-Lago in August 2022. Meanwhile, the subpoena targeting Wiles' records was narrowly focused on her communications with lawyers handling Trump's cases and potential witnesses. Former DOJ Director of Public Affairs Anthony Coley dismissed Patel's outrage as a mere pretext designed to justify the eventual arrest of Jack Smith. Coley asserted to Axios that Patel is on a singular, focused mission to uncover any possible justification to prosecute Smith, fulfilling the demands of Donald Trump and Attorney General Pam Bondi. The betrayal here is not personal, it is structural. It is built seamlessly into the machinery of federal law enforcement. This is the exact outcome of federal investigative power functioning precisely as designed. The system utilizes subpoenas that cannot be legally ignored. It deploys gag orders that criminalize the act of warning a target. It leverages immunity grants to completely strip away a witness's right to remain silent. It enforces document preservation rules to guarantee that no evidence vanishes. Kash Patel did not volunteer to become the most critical evidentiary asset in the federal investigation against Trump's inner circle. Federal investigators selected him. They systematically targeted him, acquired years of his communications without his knowledge, forced him before a grand jury, and granted him immunity so he could not plead the Fifth Amendment. They compelled him to speak under oath, permanently recording his words. Every statement he made, every data point his records contained, and every detail collected from his life now resides in the permanent archives of the Department of Justice. This vast repository is fully available to any future prosecutor or administration that chooses to utilize it. This is the true betrayal. It is not a betrayal of intention, but a betrayal born of proximity and access. The individual closest to Trump's most sensitive operations was simultaneously the individual the government penetrated most deeply. This lethal combination, unparalleled access to Trump's inner circle paired with extraordinary federal data collection, makes those files devastating in a strict legal sense. To understand the full scope of this situation, we must examine Kash Patel's background. Patel was not just a random political commentator. He was an established government lawyer possessing genuine national security credentials. He served on the National Security Council and worked closely with the House Intelligence Committee. He possessed authentic insider knowledge regarding the inner workings of the intelligence community and the FBI. This unique background lent a dangerous credibility to his attacks on the deep state. When Patel claimed the system was corrupt, he stated he had witnessed it firsthand. He understood the operational mechanics, the decision makers, and the motives behind their actions. He convincingly argued that the actions against Trump were not bureaucratic accidents, but a deliberate institutional conspiracy. This narrative transformed Patel into an enormously valuable political asset for Trump. However, it also meant that Patel was physically present and operationally involved during the most legally sensitive moments of Trump's post-presidency. He was central to discussions surrounding the post-election period, the handling of classified documents at Mar-a-Lago, and the internal strategies for responding to federal inquiries. He was not an outsider. He was a direct operational participant in events that federal investigators identified as potentially criminal. This exact operational proximity made him an irreplaceable, high-value target for prosecutors. The mechanics of the investigation reveal the sheer intensity of the DOJ's focus. The Justice Department secretly secured years of Patel's phone records and texts through federal subpoenas directed at his telecommunications carrier. A strict federal gag order accompanied these subpoenas. Patel could not be notified, and his carrier was legally barred from disclosing the data collection. A federal judge authorized this gag order based on explicit, reasonable fears of evidence destruction, witness tampering, or broader jeopardy to the investigation. This is not a standard legal threshold. To secure this order, the government had to present highly specific, credible evidence that the risks were imminent and real. The court essentially agreed that if Patel learned of the data collection, he might take actions damaging to the investigation. The scope of the subpoenas was staggering. Investigators demanded phone records spanning from late 2020 through 2023. This 3-year period encompasses the immediate post-election chaos, the events of January 6th, and the entire timeline of the Mar-a-Lago documents investigation. 3 years of call logs, metadata, and subscriber data map precisely who communicated with whom, when, and how often. This is not a narrow snapshot. It is a comprehensive, granular documentary map tracking one of Trump's central advisors during the most consequential periods of his post-presidency. Every communication pattern is permanently preserved. Beyond the data, investigators secured sworn human testimony. In 2022, Patel was summoned before a federal grand jury in Washington regarding the classified documents case. Crucially, he did not testify voluntarily. He was granted limited use immunity. This legal maneuver compelled him to testify, overriding any attempt to invoke his Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination. Simultaneously, the immunity shielded him from having his specific statements used against him in a future prosecution. This grant of immunity is the ultimate indicator of his value to the prosecution. Prosecutors only offer limited use immunity to individuals who possess critical, first-hand information that cannot be obtained through documents alone. They believe Patel had direct operational knowledge of the events surrounding the classified documents. Now, that specialized knowledge is permanently recorded under oath, available for use against other targets. This brings us to a historically unprecedented situation. Kash Patel currently directs the very agency, the FBI, that issued the subpoenas against him. He leads the institution whose investigators participated in the grand jury proceedings where he was compelled to testify. He sits at the pinnacle of the agency that meticulously built the most extensive investigative file on a Trump insider in history. Since assuming this role, Patel has actively fired the officials responsible for those investigations. Former law enforcement officials have characterized this as the most severe conflict of interest in the modern history of the FBI. An agency head is simultaneously the subject of the agency's own investigations, actively purging the personnel who built the files while controlling the institution that houses them. This dynamic raises profound questions regarding the security of those files, the protection of the investigators, and the independence of the FBI. In the realm of federal prosecution, evidence is considered lethal when it establishes intent, knowledge, and specific conduct with undeniable credibility. The Patel files achieve exactly this. 3 years of phone records cross-referenced with grand jury testimony eliminate the reliance on circumstantial evidence. These records reveal communication patterns immediately preceding critical decisions. Grand jury testimony from a central participant establishes exactly what was said and decided behind closed doors. This formidable combination directly addresses the complex question of intent, providing foundational evidence regarding the actions of Trump's inner circle. Any future prosecutor inheriting this case does not start from zero. They start with the most comprehensive documentary and testimonial blueprint ever created. It is vital to correct a widespread misunderstanding regarding Trump's legal exposure. The fact that the federal criminal indictments were dropped upon his return to the presidency does not erase the evidence. The special counsel dismissed the cases solely due to the Department of Justice's long-standing policy prohibiting the prosecution of a sitting president. This administrative decision is not a declaration of innocence. It is not a judicial finding that the evidence was flawed or that the alleged conduct did not occur. The evidence remains legally potent. The subpoenas were executed, the gag orders were enforced, and the grand jury testimony was secured under oath. These case files were meticulously compiled and are now protected by rigorous federal document retention laws. They were not destroyed, permanently sealed, or neutralized when the cases were closed. They await a future Department of Justice operating under a different president, or perhaps a state attorney general, unconstrained by federal DOJ policies. Congressional oversight committees could also leverage this material. The legal proceedings may be paused, but the evidentiary record is permanent. This reality ensures that the Patel files represent a perpetual legal exposure for the administration. Paper, data, and sworn testimonies do not forget, and they do not change their minds. They remain ready for the moment when a legal authority decides to reopen them. Moving forward, the massive conflict of interest surrounding Kash Patel's leadership of the FBI will have direct, real-world consequences. Every senior official removed from the Bureau represents a loss of institutional knowledge and accountability regarding these critical investigations. Observers across the political spectrum view this systematic removal of investigators by a former target as profoundly dangerous to the rule of law. The nation must closely monitor how congressional oversight committees respond to these personnel purges. We must track the physical security of the investigative files themselves and remain vigilant for any state-level legal actions that might attempt to access this federal record. Ultimately, Patel's impending congressional testimony regarding his dual role will be a historic moment in American law enforcement. The machine that generated these files has simply gone quiet, patiently preserving its work. One day, under the right legal conditions, those files will be opened again. Stay heavily focused on this developing narrative because it is one of the most critical legal stories unfolding in American politics today.